welcome to today's Speedy SPAG lesson with me, Miss Quimby. A special hello to everybody in 1Q and 2W at Lowbrook Academy. I hope you're well today and ready for some SPAG. So last week we did a lesson on apostrophes, and I think there was a little bit too much in that video for us all to be really confident with the use of apostrophes in our writing. So we're going to recap what we learnt last time, just to make sure that we're super confident with everything we know about apostrophes. So let's start off by warming our brains up. So, as usual, to warm our brains up today, we're going to have a look for some errors in the sentences on the screen. Now remember, we use everything that we have learnt in our previous Speedy SPAG lessons. So there might be some capital letters and full stops, there might be some adjectives, some nouns, some verbs, some adverbs, or there might even be plurals and apostrophes in there for you to spot and correct. So pause the video while you find all of the errors on the page. Do you reckon you managed to find them all? There were some tricky ones in there. Let's have a look at the answers. So then, using our knowledge of apostrophes from last time to check what you remember, our first mistake on the page was a missing apostrophe. That is a contraction. It should have been it is, and so there's a missing I in there, a missing I in is, so we should have had an apostrophe for its. It's a shame the weather is colder. Well, there's no punctuation to finish that sentence, so we need a full stop. Well done if you managed to remember that you need a full stop at the end of a sentence. On to the green one then. Why is Sam laughing? Well, Sam is a proper noun. It's the name of a person, so it needs a capital letter. And because it's a question, we need a question mark at the end of our sentence. On to the blue one. We're missing a capital letter to start our sentence. The children were playing quiet. Well, that doesn't make sense. Quiet is an adjective, but we need an adverb to describe how the children were playing. So an adverb will end in ly, in ly. So the children were playing quietly would be the correct adverb. And finally, on to the yellow sentence. Wow, that's amazing! So we're missing another apostrophe there because that's is a contraction. It was that is, and it's been contracted to that's. So we've got a missing I in there again. So we need an apostrophe for the missing letter. And also it's an exclamation, so we need an exclamation mark at the end of our sentence. Good job if you spotted all of those errors on the page. So, since we're recapping apostrophes today, we're going to use our same learning intention as last time. Can I accurately use apostrophes in my writing? And we're going to look at using apostrophes for possession and apostrophes for contractions. So, let's start off by looking at that task I left you to do at the end of last lesson. I showed you these 5 sentences and I told you that there were some missing apostrophes and missing contractions in there. I asked you to rewrite the sentences using apostrophes correctly. If you didn't do this, don't panic, you can pause the video now while you have a go, using what you think you know about apostrophes. If you did do it, dig your answers out now and we'll have a look at where those apostrophes and contractions should be. Here we go then. These were tricky, guys, so don't panic if you didn't get them. As I say, we're going to recap apostrophes today. So the first one, Miss Quimby's class are working really hard at home. Now the class are my class, they belong to me, and so we need an apostrophe in Miss Quimby's between my name and the S to show that they belong to me. Miss Wetherall can't wait for her Google Hangout call. Now originally that said cannot, so we contracted cannot, we took away one of the N's and the O in not, and we made can't. Miss Wetherall can't wait for her Google Hangout. That's a contraction there. Then on to the green one. The children's pens and pencils didn't have names. Now I tried to catch you out there. I put 2 apostrophes in that sentence. So the pens and the pencils belong to the children. So we need an apostrophe to show that they are a possession of the children's. But then we also had a contraction in there. We had did not have names. So I've contracted did not to didn't, taking away the O in not and adding an apostrophe to show there is a missing letter. The children's pens and pencils did not have names. Didn't have names. On to the blue one then. You should not became shouldn't. You shouldn't be unkind to others. Again, I've taken that O in not and replaced it with an apostrophe, so my contraction becomes shouldn't. And finally, there were two again in the purple sentence. We had I would becomes I'd. Lots of missing letters there in I would. I'd love to read Sophie's story. The story belongs to Sophie, so we need an apostrophe to show it is her possession. Now, as I said, some of these were really, really tricky, and I tried my hardest to catch you out. I wonder if I managed it. If I did manage to catch you out, don't panic, because we're going to recap everything we need to know about apostrophes today. So, the first thing we need to know about apostrophes is that they are used for contractions. And I told you that contractions are short words made by putting two words together. We leave some of the letters out in the contraction and we replace that letter or letters by an apostrophe. Now remember, I told you that it doesn't matter how many letters we take away from the original word, we only use one apostrophe, whether it's one missing letter or lots of missing letters. So a contraction is a short word made by taking letters from two words and contracting those words together, squeezing those words together. So let's test what you know about contractions. On the screen, I've got a table. On one side of the table are the long versions of the words cannot, we have, you are. And on the other side of the table are the contractions hasn't, she'll, doesn't. Your job is to use what you know about apostrophes and about contractions to complete the gaps in the table. I wonder what cannot is as a contraction if I took some of the letters away and squeezed the words together. Pause the video while you fill in the blanks and then we'll come back and have a look at the answers together. How did you find that? Did you fill them all in or were you caught out by any? Let's have a quick look at the answers. I've popped them in the table in black. So cannot becomes can't. We take away the N and the O in not and we put an apostrophe in place of them. And that word, once it's squeezed together, becomes can't. Cannot is can't. Now the next one, we were given hasn't. We were given the contraction. But if I put a letter back in where that apostrophe is, it becomes has not. Has not and hasn't. On to the next one, we were given she'll. Now this apostrophe is in place of two missing letters because we were missing the W and the I from will. She will means she'll. Then we were given we have. Now we have, when we contract it and we squeeze it together, taking away some of those letters, we take away the H and the A and we go from we have to we've, replacing the H and the A with an apostrophe. Then we were given doesn't. Now doesn't, before it has been contracted, is does not, and that apostrophe is in place of a missing O. Then you are is contracted to your. We take away the A in are, we put in an apostrophe, and we end up with your. Now some of those were really, really tricky, so well done if you managed to get all 6 of those answers correct. So we've revised contractions. Now it's your turn to put what you've learnt into practice. On the screen there are 3 sentences. I'd like you to rewrite these sentences, putting in an apostrophe for a contraction, just like I've done in the green rectangles at the top. Ralph cannot sleep without his teddy. I've contracted cannot to Ralph can't sleep without his teddy, making sure I use an apostrophe for the missing letters. Now be careful, because there might be more than one contraction in some of the sentences. If you don't want to write out the sentences, you might want to just tell your mums or dads or your brother or sister, whoever is with you, what the contractions are. So pause the video while you identify all of the contractions in these 3 red sentences. Okay then, shall I show you the answers? Let's have a look. So our first sentence, Shelley must not touch her mum's jewellery. Must not can be contracted to mustn't. I take away the O in not and I replace it with an apostrophe. So we're seeing a pattern here. Whenever we've got a word with not after it, we can contract it, taking away the O and adding an apostrophe. Cannot becomes can't, must not becomes mustn't. So Shelley mustn't touch her mum's jewellery. You'll notice we also have an apostrophe for possession in there because the jewellery belongs to her mum. But we'll come on to apostrophes for possession later on. The next one then, John is sure he will win the race. So John is sure he'll win the race. There's my contraction. He will becomes he'll. The last one, Jane is not sure where they are hiding. There are two contractions in this one, so good job if you spotted both of them. They can be contracted to Jane isn't sure where they're hiding. So for isn't, we've got is not. We've taken away the O and replaced it with an apostrophe, and it's contracted to isn't. And then we had they are, and we've taken away the A in are, and we've contracted that word to their, replacing the A with an apostrophe. So there were 4 contractions you could have spotted in those sentences. Good job if you got all 4. Now, if you need a quick break, now is a good time to pause the video while you go and get a drink of water or have a run around, and then come back when you're ready to finish the lesson. If you're happy to carry on, you don't need to pause the video and you can carry on through to the next part of my lesson. So the other use of apostrophes we discussed last time and are going to look at today is apostrophes for possession. Now, a possession is something that belongs to someone, an object that belongs to someone. So for example, here we can see a picture of Nadia. And Nadia is listening to her radio. The radio belongs to Nadia. So this is Nadia's radio. So we write Nadia's name, and then we write a little apostrophe, and we write S to show it belongs to Nadia. Now, if I didn't have that apostrophe and I wrote Nadia's without the apostrophe, that would suggest there were lots and lots of Nadias. But there's only one Nadia in that picture. So it's Nadia's radio, and we know that because there is an apostrophe for possession. So now that we know that, have a look at these pictures. We've got Rachel with her car, we've got Clara with her toy train, we've got Kaylee with her book, and we've got Malik with his rocket. Can you complete the sentences using apostrophes for possession to show the belongings that belong to each person? Pause the video while you try completing those sentences, just like we did with Nadia's radio. Have you managed it? Have you used your apostrophes for possession in each of the 4 sentences? Let's have a look at what the answers should have been. So let's start with Rachel and her car. This is Rachel's car. We write Rachel, apostrophe S, and then we write car. This is Rachel's car. It shows that the car belongs to her. On to Clara and her train then. This is Clara's train. Clara, apostrophe S, to show it belongs to Clara. Down on to Kaylee then. This is Kaylee's book. We've spotted the pattern. We write her name, apostrophe S, to show it belongs to Kaylee. And finally, with Malik's rocket, this is Malik's rocket. Malik, apostrophe S. Well done if you have successfully used apostrophes in all 4 of these sentences. So now is the time to put what you've learnt about apostrophes for possession to practice. On the screen there are 4 sentences and they've all got missing apostrophes for possession. Your job is to find where those apostrophes should go and add them into the sentence. Now again, if you don't have the time or you don't want to write them all out, you can just talk to your grown-up about where the apostrophes should go and read those sentences carefully with the apostrophe. But if you've got time, you should write them all out and put the apostrophe in carefully. Now be careful, because some of them might have more than one apostrophe for possession. Pause the video while you have a go at finding the missing apostrophes. Did you find them all? Let's have a look at where they should be. I've rewritten the sentences out with those apostrophes for possession. So in the first sentence, I sometimes borrow my brother's football. The football belongs to their brother. So we need an apostrophe in brothers to show that there's not lots of brothers, but that there's one brother and the football belongs to him. So brother, apostrophe S. Then on to the next one, Sarah's dad is really funny. Well, it's Sarah's dad. The dad belongs to Sarah, so we need an apostrophe in Sarah's just before the S. On to the next one, I saw Tony's mum and Hannah's sister at the park. Well, the mum belongs to Tony and the sister belongs to Hannah, so we need 2 apostrophes for possession in here, one for Tony's and one for Hannah's, and the apostrophe will go before the S in each name. So good job if you spotted both apostrophes for possession in that one. I tried to catch you there. On to the last one then. Would you like to come to my friend's party? Well, there isn't a name in there, so where does the apostrophe for possession go? Well, the party belongs to the friend, so we need an apostrophe for possession there in friends. Good job if you spotted that one. So I'm hoping that today's lesson has helped you feel a little bit more confident with how we use apostrophes both for contractions and for possession. But I couldn't leave you today without teaching you something new. And there is a rule that we haven't quite covered yet when it comes to apostrophes for possession. So here's a sentence on the screen. I'm looking forward to going to my grandparents' house. Now hang on a second, because we're going to need an apostrophe for possession because the house belongs to the grandparents. But I've got more than one grandparent living in that house, and the house belongs to both of them, not just to one. If I put my apostrophe here between the T and the S, that suggests that it's just one grandparent that the house belongs to, and so that's not where I want my apostrophe. So my apostrophe has to go after the S. But we don't say grandparents' house because that's just tricky to say. So whenever the noun that the possession belongs to ends in an S, like grandparents ends in an S, we put an apostrophe after the S and don't add another S to show it belongs to them. So now that you know that, have a look at the 2 sentences in orange on the screen. Your job is to put the apostrophe for possession in the right place. Pause the video while you have a go. Okay, these were tricky. Let's see if you've managed to apply what you've learned about apostrophes for possession when the noun ends in an S. Let's have a look. I've written them out with the apostrophes in the correct place. So because Mrs. Lucas's name ends in an S, we put the apostrophe after the S and don't add another S. Otherwise it becomes too tricky to say Mrs. Lucas's class. Okay, on to the next one then. There were lots of teachers who all did the pantomime, and it didn't belong to any one of us. We all worked on it together at Christmas time. So it was the teachers as a whole pantomime. So we need the apostrophe after the S and we don't add another S to show it belonged to all of us teachers. Well done if you managed to put those apostrophes in the correct place. So I really hope that today's Speedy SPAG video has made apostrophes a little bit clearer for you, because I know that last week's video was quite long and quite tricky for you all. Well done if you've kept up with it and written out all of the sentences carefully in your very best handwriting. If you're in Key Stage 1 at Holy Trinity or at Lowbrook Academy, why not upload them onto Google Classroom for your teachers to have a look at? Thank you so much again for joining me, guys. Keep safe, be good at home, and I'll see you really soon. Bye everyone.